and welcome to our panel discussion on sustainability for the sugar industry. Today we'll explore some key topics that impact us going forward, and at the end of it, hopefully we'll arrive at a self-sustaining, climate-conscious model for our industry. The discussion that is there from the panel will cover a lot of topics, including crop variety, yields, some global success stories, some new business models, and other technology. Let's be clear that sugar is a very large part of the agri-industry worldwide. And there have been business models that have been working on in the past, but in light of the changes, especially of climate and sustainability, we need to look at a new business model, a model that will be self-sustaining, a model that will help reduce production cost, something that will increase efficiency and promote long-term sustainability, which is key to going forward. We have a distinguished set of panels who will share their insights today and keep these perspectives as we go forward. Sitting right next to me is Kerry Redshaw. Kerry has been a very long-standing part of the South African sugar industry. Worked in the South African Sugarcane Research Institute, as well as in the breeder, variety agronomist, and operations manager. It's great to have somebody who's worked in research, who has operational experience that gives you really first-hand feel. She recently joined the Miwa Sugar in August of 22 as Agricultural Development Manager, providing support and specialist services to the sugarcane operations of Tanzania and Kenya. Can we give her a round of applause, please? Sitting to the right of Kerry is Dr. Rod Steindl. If I talk of decades, it's almost 6 decades of experience in the sugar industry, and that really is an absolute star, if I can say. He currently is a consultant director of Sugarcane Consulting International, previously the principal research fellow at the Queensland University of Technology, and the principal scientist and research manager at the Sugar Research Institute. Can we have a round of applause? Welcome him. Sitting next to Dr. Rod is Professor Bernard Schroeder. He is the chair, Agricultural Commissioner and chair of the Agronomy section of the ISSCT. He's a professor in farming systems, not something that we hear very often, but happy to know, at the University of the Southern Queensland in Australia, an experienced agricultural researcher with sound understanding of sugarcane production systems, in-depth knowledge of issues affecting sugarcane, sustainability, including productivity, profitability, and environment. Can we have a big round of applause for Dr. To his right is Vijendra Singh, the Executive Director and Deputy CEO. Vijendra has been associated with the Renuka sugars for over 12 years now, and an overall experience of over 4 decades in the sugar processing and agro-processing industry. Along with being an Executive Director of Shree Renuka Sugars, he's also the Managing Director at the KBK Engineering, an ethanol manufacturing company, and on the board of director in the Renuka companies in Brazil. So he will be bringing in the international perspective that we're going to be talking today. Welcome him with a round of applause, please. Next to Mr. Vijendra Singh is Roshan. Mr. Roshan Tamak is a well-known figure in the Indian sugar industry. He heads the sugar business at DCM Shriram. He brings with him over 3 decades of experience and has excellent experience in greenfield projects. So much so that the government of India, he's spearheading a particular project called Sustainable Sugarcane Production. And that covers over 200,000 smallholders in a town called Hardoi. And this is a very backward district, and obviously the kind of experience he has is why he's leading this project. This is in collaboration with the International Finance Corporation, along with Coca-Cola, and currently yielding very good results. to give you a sense of what all he's a part of. He's a part of ISMA. He's a vice president at STAI. He is a member of the High-Powered Committee for Sugarcane Seed and Varietal Replacement Program, member of the CII Energy Committee, and today he will be speaking on the seed varietal. Big round of applause for Sir Tamak. To his right is sitting Mr. Tarun, the Vice Chairman and Managing Director for Triveni Engineering Industries Limited. Triveni Engineering Industries Limited is among the large fully integrated sugar and ethanol manufacturers in India and is a market leader in engineering business comprising of high-speed gears, gearboxes, naval defense solutions, and water treatment solutions. Mr. Sawhney has been a past president at ISMA. He is a past chairman of the Indian Sugar Exempt Corporation Limited. He is a member of the Confederation of Indian Industries, National Council and chairman. He is a part of the CII Agricultural Council, co-chairman to CII Task Force of Bioenergy, including ethanol. Mr. Sawhney has been conferred the Industry Excellence Award for his contribution to the sugar industry by the Honorable President of India, Srimati Pratibha Patil. Big round of applause to welcome him. Without much ado, we will start the panel discussion. And we're going to start first to you, Mr. Tamak. The question to you is, good variety of cane is the key for sustainability. What are we doing to grow varieties of high sugar, high yield, and high resistance to pests and diseases? Over to you.
Good afternoon. So, thanks, Sanjay. As you have mentioned that for sustainability, variety is of utmost importance. Variety can be a game changer, as we have witnessed and experienced very recently in Indian sugar sector. One particular variety has changed the face of the sector. It has not only increased the viability of the sector, but also increased the income of the farmers very, very significantly. And the cost and the value majorly comes from sugarcane in sugar sector. So we can very well appreciate the importance and significance of variety. In India, the system of breeding of varieties is like this for the benefit of our foreign guests. There is a structure of federal government and provincial governments. There are many research institutes which are controlled by central government and then provincial governments. Basically, the breeding and the selection of the varieties is being done by the researchers, and thereon it is taken over by the industry. So coming to industry side, because we can touch upon that subject more authoritatively. After breeding, we source the germplasms from various research institutes. Then we set up varietal trials at our factory farms. Testing and evaluation is done. And then after shortlisting the varieties, these are being propagated into the field. So this is the major work which factories are doing. Then subsequently, at field level, agri practices are being adopted. Basically, clean cultivation practices are being adopted so that the vigor of these varieties is maintained. And in case of any problem, the rejuvenation can also be done. So for that, phytosanitation practices, clean practices are being adopted at large scale level. Coming to this sustainability part particularly, I should like to touch upon that what kind of practices are being adopted by Indian sugar sector. Indian sugar sector is adopting so many sustainable agriculture practices in the field level. And because we are dealing with smallholders, so it is little difficult. It is unlike other countries where captive farms are there. But nonetheless, factories have put up extension team and a very solid network of agriculture staff to interact and engage with the farmers in a seamless manner for 365 days. So we undertake many practices, right from seed treatment, soil treatment, and then foliar spray, ratoon management practices, and of course, this activities related to entomology and pathology. So, and because we are discussing the subject sustainability, on water conservation also, various factories have adopted activities on large scale, like trash mulching, composting, drip irrigation, and they have saved huge quantity of water, which is running into billion liters of water in many factories. So this is a commendable job being done by many sugar companies in India, and this is how we are trying to achieve the mandate of sustainability.
Thank you, Mr. Tamak. Very clearly, you outline the fact that the key focus for sustainability is to get good farmer income. And the whole breeding, testing, and evaluation is key to success. So, Kerry, on to you. What aspect of sustainability management have been incorporated in the sugarcane agri sector that you've been involved with over the years?
Thank you. Thank you so much for the question. It's not working? Thanks for the question. So most of my experience comes really from my 30 years working with SASRI in South Africa. Sustainability is a very broad term. So when you're talking about sustainability and managing sustainability, you're having to take into account the economics, the society, the human aspect, and the environment, the planet. So with SASRI, we've always sort of focused on trying to support the industry, the whole sugar industry, in terms of achieving basically and ensuring that the business practices the agricultural practices and best management practices are adopted by our stakeholders so that they can improve their economic sustainability to produce a product. You would have heard I think from some of the questions that were asked and some of the talks over this last week, that the South African sugar industry is under a huge pressure at the moment, economically, from a sustainability point of view. So SASRI tries to support that to the best of their ability. Basically, the SASRI focuses on the agricultural production. So SASRI focuses on agricultural production and ensuring that sustainable practice, best management practices are adopted with an economic focus to improve yields, to improve the profits that growers will make, but in an efficient way, using less resources and an environmentally friendly way. The other aspect at SASRI and in any business is actually your staff, your employees. Being in the operations manager at SASRI, you have to look after your people. You can't produce any products, you can't produce any research without having happy employees and happy staff. So I think the focus also, HR management within business is absolutely critical and was a strong focus, obviously, at SASRI. And I think we heard earlier, the panel discussion we had, the plenary session earlier was on environmental sustainability. And I think Rian spoke very clearly about what's being done at SASRI to ensure that growers' soil is protected, and also focus on the adoption and how basically can SASRI ensure and convey the message clearly so that those practices are adopted by growers, so that the environment is protected and that sustainability of the industry is sustained into the future. So I think perhaps, maybe that's all I need to say.
Thank you, Dr. Kerry. You know, it's interesting that you mentioned the word planet in sustainability. That's excellent because obviously we're looking to go way beyond just our sector. The key thing that you said really was base management practices for sustainability. We now move on to Dr. Rod Steindl. For sustainability, good quality sugar, after all, good quality sugar is the key product that we sell, is very important. What are the precautions required by process engineers to improve this quality while keeping the base management practices for sustainability?
Thank you, sir. To adequately address that question, I could give you a course that would totally take about 3 days, and I've got 4 minutes. So I'll start by trying to define what sugar quality is, because in reality, sugar quality is defined by the customers that use your sugar, in effect. And those customers always seem to have their own standards for each of the quality parameters, depending on what they're going to do with the sugar. For some of the sugars that you produce may go directly to market and for domestic use. Others go to refiners, to other manufacturers that use your raw sugar as the feedstock for some other value-added products. Each of those will have their own quality parameters, and they define their quality parameters based on what they're going to use the sugar for, how well your sugar keeps in storage until they're ready to use it, and limit the impurities that affect their processes so that they keep their costs down to a minimum. I was looking at some different quality specifications a week ago, and they're so varied. I counted 18 different quality parameters that different end users apply to the sugar that they're receiving from sugar mills. Obviously, the most common one is the pull of the sugar, because all your customers pay based on pull of your product. Most factories can adequately control the pull of your sugar. Some of you, because of bad vacuum pan design or poor operation of your fugels, need to add a lot more water, and that creates another cost for you, but not for your client. Moisture is another one, because moisture is very important, because that has an impact on the keeping qualities of your sugar while it's in storage before the end user gets to do whatever they're going to do with the sugar. And if your moisture is too high, or if your temperature is too high, then you're going to lose a lot of pull before the sugar is used by the end user. And if you're shipping it somewhere, then by the time that shipment gets to the end user, then you may have lost pull, and the client may, in some cases, has rejected that shipment because the pull didn't fit in the range of the standards that they've set. Another one on keeping qualities that I find important is the amount of fine grain. And if I went to every sugar factory in India, sorry to pick on you, but you're the closest, every factory that I would visit would probably fail on the amount of fine grain that you have in your shipment sugar or your product sugar. And that has a big effect on the keeping qualities of your sugar while it's in storage. There are a number of quality parameters that you have very little control over, things like colour, for instance. Most of the colour in your sugar, particularly raw sugar, comes in with the cane supply. So ideally, the growers are growing varieties that have low colour and not sending in immature cane or cane suckers that have a lot more colour in the leaf product. Starch is another one that mostly is determined by the cane variety. A lot of factories have, these days, rely on amylase to reduce that starch. And dextran comes in with the cane supply as well, and the factories need to deal with that if you've got a lot of deterioration. Insoluble solids, I've had a lot of complaints over the last couple of days about insoluble solids going through the factory because they're not operating the clarifiers or their flash tanks correctly. And that's an internal problem that the factory itself has to deal with. Things like lead and arsenic, they are some quality parameters that I've seen for some users of your raw sugar for carbonated drinks. And I assume that that all comes in with the cane supply in certain countries. What happens if you achieve 100% compliance with the quality parameters set by your clients? Does that mean you just keep supplying under an existing contract, or does he give you a bonus? What else? That'll do.
Thank you, Dr. Steindl. I think there are so many parameters, the color, the size, which impact the final quality of sugar. But the key thing that you mentioned was all this we have to manage while keeping costs to a minimum. Dr. Schroeder, key question for you now. How can we manage the entire in-field amortization and crop rotation to improve fertility, to try and get better yields and sustainability while trying to keep the cost to a minimum?
Thank you so much for that question. It's something that I feel very strongly about. And in my opinion, the answer to that is linked totally to the concept of sustainability. So as Kerry suggested, sustainability is profitable production in combination with environmental responsibility, and that's absolutely true. And then she added the component of social aspects, because we need to ensure that people growing the crop are also there in a way that favours them and ensures their futures and the conditions they live under. But also suggest then that the other one is the cultural aspect. So what is culturally acceptable in some circumstances might not be culturally accepted in others. And we do things differently around the world. So the point is, sustainability must take all of those things into consideration. Because why would a grower want to do something on his farm or her farm that doesn't allow them to have gains in terms of all four of those components of sustainability? So I suggest then that best management practices need to take consideration of all of those, and I think we recognise that. When we speak about ensuring that the sugar industry is sustainable, the thing that binds us all together is the soil, the stuff that we grow the cane in. And we know that soils differ markedly around the world and within countries and within districts and on farms. So that to ameliorate the soil is an important aspect, because it says we keep trying to keep that natural resource to the best possible standard to enable those varieties which we heard about to grow to the best of their potential, and for the sugar, for instance, to be produced because without caring for the soil in the background, we don't have a hope of continuing to do the other things. So sustainability means we're trying to optimize the inputs into our production system so that we have optimized yields. And at the moment, we aim predominantly at raw sugar. But this fantastic crop of ours, sugarcane, has the potential to do all kinds of other things as far as I'm concerned. Its biomass enables us to produce energy and things like fiber for other means as well. So in terms of sustainability, we must talk about profitable cane production in combination with these other things. Amelioration must be seen in the bigger sense. And if you look at a dictionary, you'll find that amelioration means doing things, or the act, or the process of making things better. So that making things better enables us to ensure that we keep being viable into the future. Not just the growers that are busy on the farms producing these crops, but the millers and the other people who are associated with the industry. I feel quite strongly that environmental sustainability is often aimed just at ensuring that we look at water quality, as in Australia because of the Great Barrier Reef. But if the grower and the industry is sustainable, that other part of sustainability, environmental sustainability, will flow naturally from it. We can't hamper people from doing the best on their farms to ensure that they remain profitable, because each of those farms is a business. Businesses around the world don't tolerate people telling them what they can do and what they can't do if it impinges on their profitability. So my suggestion is that amelioration aimed at all those things, chemical, physical, and biological processes. And chemical ones, we've heard from Rion about liming soil properties before lunch, or applying gypsum to ameliorate sodic soil conditions. But we also know that tillage practices enable the physical component of soil to be improved. But organic amelioration is more and more important as we go forward. We must keep adding organic matter into the soil because it adds to diversity and the microbial activity, etc. That is really important because our soils continue to degrade as we produce crops. I therefore suggest that crops like break crops or rotational crops or even companion cropping is a form of amelioration that makes things better as well. The question then is, or the answer really is not just one of those things, but an integrated approach to ensure that all of those things are done on the farm. And that one thing is not the answer, but all of those should be addressed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dr. Schroeder. I think optimize the inputs so that the farm is sustainable and the industry is sustainable. I'm now going to ask Mr. Tarun Sawhney. The Indian sugar industry is approaching sustainability in numerous ways, including the foray into biorefineries. Do you think this is a sustainable model for the world to follow?
And good afternoon to all the delegates and my fellow panelists. I followed the conversation during this session, and we've approached sustainability in a classical manner. We've looked at farm sustainability, we've looked at process sustainability, and the previous speaker spoke about environmental sustainability. I do believe that the sustainability of the business model is something that requires immediate attention. It's something that Indian sugar businesses have done in their own unique manner. I'm delighted to speak about it. It's a subject I feel very strongly about. And I believe we've just started the process. There's a lot that will be achieved over the course of this decade. As you will see during the course of the post-Congress tours, there's a lot of development that's been made, and the thought process is already underway in terms of how these models will evolve. But let me start by at least sharing with you my perspective on why this has happened. In India, we have extraordinarily high costs of sugarcane, possibly the highest in the world. And that has really resulted in innovative discussions, innovative business models appearing across the industry. The first and most obvious has been the development of ethanol plants and biorefineries. This mandate has come from right from the very top, from the Prime Minister of our country, looking at 20% ethanol blending by the year 2025-26. And I'm happy and delighted to inform you that we've actually achieved 10% ethanol blending about 6 months ago, several months in advance of that target. Now, the emergence of ethanol within the Indian sugar ecosystem has really come about as a mechanism to draw out the excess sugar from the country. And it's been a very effective system because it has various price points for the ethanol that is manufactured, depending on the route, depending on the material, whether it's C molasses, B heavy molasses, or sugarcane juice, and of course, 2 different varieties of grain. And therefore, we have 5 different prices of ethanol that exists within the Indian ecosystem. Now, this is unique. It's something that can certainly work, and it does work if the objective is to deal with excess sugar that is produced. And sugarcane, being a politically sensitive and politically charged subject, especially when it's expensive, it's exciting when we find innovative methods of dealing with these excesses. Going forward, the Indian ecosystem of biorefining is going to change quite dramatically as innumerable distilleries are set up across the nation. It leads to a variety of new allied businesses as well that come up, and I'd like to spend just a few minutes. It's actually a subject for a much longer discussion, but I'm going to highlight just a few of the new business opportunities that are emerging. Some of them are already in place that will allow the entire ecosystem to function in a renewed and sustainable manner for the next few decades. Now, if we look at sugarcane processing, from the press mud, we already have schemes within the country to process it in biodigesters and release CBG, compressed biogas, also known as RNG, or renewable natural gas. The schemes that are prevalent in this country allow RNG to be used for domestic cooking, transportation, power generation, etc. Localized grid models are just a small function of how this will be utilized across a large country like India. It's a model that is gaining a lot of traction. The first target is to have 5,000 such plants across the country, and the sugarcane industry is going to be a clear leader in this business model, further adding to the normalization of profitability over the course of a business cycle. And then, of course, we turn to second-generation ethanols, which come from cellulosic ethanol, for example, from bagasse, etc., and other utilizations of bagasse. As we look at sustainability from a process perspective, and I look at my peers in the industry, we're seeing that there is a renewed focus on energy conservation, on maximization of bagasse saving, etc., for the simple utilization in terms of further value enhancement. The molasses and juice that are used in distilleries also, it's interesting because we have, the vast majority of the country has embraced a zero effluent policy through boilers that actually burn the spent wash with the secondary fuel, etc. One of the main, the ash content actually that we get from these boilers is very high in potash, and that leads to another allied business. The segregation and sale of biofertilizers, highly concentrated fertilizers, is another unique business model that has emerged. In addition, the carbon dioxide that is emitted through distilleries, the packaging of that either in a compressed form or dry ice, etc., again offers exciting possibilities. But these are just a smattering of the new businesses that are emerging. The ecosystem is approaching it in new and innovative ways. And you're going to see through these tours, and I would highly encourage the delegates to keep coming back to India, because in the next few years, you're going to see not sugar factories, you're going to see biocomplexes, bioenergy complexes that exist. I believe that India will, and it all starts because we have very high costs for sugarcane. And it's going to be a new, exciting environment, and there's a lot that can be applied to other parts of the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sawhney. You've obviously touched a chord. I think the innovative business model as clearly outlined across an array of products sounded like there's nothing like sugar. There's a whole array of new products that were talked about. To understand that more and see how it's been done, we're going to go to our last speaker, Mr. Vijendra Singh. The question for you, Mr. Singh, is how are practices in Brazil versus India in the sugar industry regarding sustainability and the new products that were talked about?
Thank you, Sanjay. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a very interesting question and take a lot of time to explain, but let me try. So, sugar industry in Brazil is different from India in many, many aspects. So, let's start with the agriculture side, where they are doing sustainability better than India. First of all, the main food for the cane is water. And they don't allow any river water to be used for irrigation, even the bore wells. So whatever cane you grow on rainwater. So you can say the cane is fully sustainable. You're not using any energy to pump water, or you're not using energy to lift water from the river. Secondly, the varietal development is very strong. They have one CTC institute which released and developed and released a variety which are sustainable and suitable for the particular environment. Obviously, it's not free like India. So everybody who want to use the variety, they have to pay fee for that. On agri practices, no cane burning is allowed now. So all trash is reused. Is one of the way of sustainability. For irrigation, they allow vinasse to be used. I mean, unlike India, where we think vinasse is not to be used at the farm for irrigation. So this is all about on agri side. If you see the energy generation in Brazil, it's only 21% from the fossil fuel. About 80% come from the green energy. And out of that, primarily the hydropower. Hydro is more than 60% in Brazil now. Rest comes solar, wind. Unlike India, we are more than 70% on coal-based power generation. I think this is one of the biggest challenge for us to do, and I think we are progressing. On green fuel side, Brazil produces about 30 billion liters of ethanol, as against 4 billion in India. It's 7 times than what we produce today. But interestingly, the population of 140 crore here and only 22 crore in Brazil, per person is very minuscule what we produce today, only 3 liters per person perhaps. And Brazil produces more than 100 liters per person. So the consumption of ethanol per person is very high. The production and consumption both goes hand in hand. So dependence upon the gasoline is very limited. But as Tarun had said already, that we are progressing and we should target ambitiously what we can do. Something I think is not eco-friendly there, what I can share with you that they don't have trains. So entire logistic depend upon the trucks. And obviously trucks not so efficient as fuel consumption is high in truck as compared to trains. Secondly, I believe that car usage is very high. Like India produces 1 million car per year, they also produce same number of cars. And population is about 1.6. It's a large number of cars they use, so it's not eco-friendly that way. This is one of the major points I can share with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. I think it's interesting how we've covered innovative models, we've covered best practices. So we will now, and we're doing well on time, fortunately, we'll now have the floor thrown open to the House for questions. I'll appreciate, please ask, introduce yourself, and if you can restrict your question to just one. You can direct it, and then we'll see which among the distinguished panel will then answer the question. So over to the audience for questions. Okay, we have a question here.
So, I am Dr. Suresh Pawar from Maharashtra, India. So, regarding the sustainability, the yield in sugarcane is a very important factor. Yield and seed, selection of seed, or maintaining the seed purity. So, in India, there is a very diverse climate right from south to north. That is tropical and subtropical. So we are recommending variety according to the zones. And also in the same zone also, there are again diverse climate within the 50 kilometer or 100 kilometer area. Like in some area, there is a high rainfall area, and in the same district, there is a drought condition or a low rainfall area. So accordingly, we are recommending the varieties and the planning of variety, that is early variety, mid-late variety, and late variety. And their planting and harvesting is a very important for the sustainability of the crop yield as well as the recovery of the crop. For example, in Maharashtra, there are two regions, basically that is high recovery zone and low recovery zone and medium recovery zone. So in high recovery zone, the recovery is high as well as the crop productivity is also high. So in that area, the early variety and the mid-late variety and combination of mid-late variety gives good satisfactory yield or sustainable yield, because the planting, planning and harvesting planning is easy if you maintain the seed purity according to this varietal
That's
purity
right.
as well as. Then another point is the.
Sir, can we get to your question,
Yes.
sir? Because
Then
otherwise we'll lose.
Another point is the purity of the seed. So in this purity, again, there is a three-tier system in the seed production, but nobody follows the three-tier system because seed production and the certification in sugarcane is very difficult. So under that situation, the seedling planting and the purity of the seedling is easier. So if you maintain the purity, then the yield is also more as well as recovery is also more. Then regarding the climate change, according to the climate change, if you select the varieties, particular that climate, it is high rainfall area, certain varieties, or according to the soil type, the variety, if you select the varieties, that gives the good result. Then another point is
Sir, can I just ask you, thank you for the excellent mapping that you're doing. That seedling should be done as per the, area and what are the conditions there. Our query is, can you address what is the question you'd like to ask the panel, sir?
Question is, I am asking the panelists that whether for the sustainability and the recovery, whether any point on this biomass yield, because generally people give more importance for the high recovery varieties, but they doesn't think to the returnability or other things. So I will ask the panelists whether for the sustainability, the return yield is given any importance for the selection of the varieties.
Mr. Tamak, can I ask you to answer?
So, coming straight to your question, as you have also mentioned that researchers, while releasing the varieties, these varieties are tested in different agroclimatic zones. So this is the first requirement. Secondly, as far as parameters of releasing or recommending any varieties are concerned, there are 4 or 5 major parameters. One, of course, yield. Second is sucrose content. Third is susceptibility to major diseases like red rot. Fourth is returnability. So these are the parameters which are considered while releasing the varieties. As far as management of varieties is concerned, there are 3 parts. One, of course, a particular variety which is recommended for a particular zone should only be grown over there. This is one requirement. Then at micro level, we should, as in factories, we should lay out varietal trials and observe the behavior and performance of these varieties under local conditions, because the performance will vary from location to location. And third, good agricultural practices should be exercised for maintaining the purity of the seed, as you have mentioned, seed nursery program, and besides other agricultural practices. So these are the points which you should take care.
Thank you, Mr. Tamak.
Myself, Bukhare. My question is to Mr. Tamak. Sir, the mechanical harvesting portion is increasing nowadays, and the main challenges for the mechanical harvesting are the trash content and handling the lodge cane. What are the efforts being taken while developing a variety for taking care of these 2 issues? Thank you.
Yeah, so 2 things should be kept into mind. And mechanical harvesting is going to be reality, and day by day it will increase. We should learn from the experiences of other nations, like our Australian friends are sitting over here, Brazilian friends are also sitting over here. So we should learn from their experience. These 2 industry has communicated to the researchers 2 requirements. One, varieties should be self-detracing. This is one which attributes should be incorporated while breeding any variety. And second, the stand of the crop, because lodging, the root system of that particular variety should be strong enough so that it can avoid lodging. These 2 things can be kept into consideration while breeding of the varieties.
Okay, we have a question at that end. Can we get a mic to the lady, please?
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Swati Ahuja from DCM Shriram Limited, and my question is to the panel. The query is that while we are talking about sustainability in sugar, we need to touch upon the point of digitization and digitalization to be inbuilt into our processes. So the question is, how do you see digitization of business processes and digitalization of operations in the new ecosystem of a data-driven environment?
Yeah, thank you. Can I ask Mr. Vijendra Singh to answer that?
Help with the question again, please, because you're... Okay, I got this.
Sure.
Well, digitalization now part of life for everywhere is no more a luxury, it's a necessity. So the sustainability is byproduct of that necessity now. When you have the fully data availability is good, processing is available, you have useful data on your table. Most of the logistic cost, processing cost can be reduced. And when you have the lower input cost, better logistic movement and better control on this, automatically sustainability will come in picture. So I think it's an integral part of our growth journey towards sustainability.
Okay, we have run out of time. We'll just take one last question
Hello.
before we bring this to a close.
Good afternoon. I am Steindl Kumar, VPK in NSL Sugars. So it is not a question, it is a submission. So earlier days we have been using this Vinesh in India as one-time application just 1 or 2 months before taking preparatory cultivation of that land. But now it is being not encouraged by this pollution control board, both the CPCB and also the State Pollution Control Board. I request this forum to recommend again to government or propose to government to allow us to use this spent wash as one-time application in the fallow lands.
Noted, sir.
Thank you.
And we will take it up. Once again, on behalf of ISSCT, I thank you all the panelists for taking their time and sharing the views. Thank you once again.
Please stay on the seats because the organizing committee wants to recognize your participation. On behalf of the organizing committee, we would like to recognize the great participation in this panel. So please.
Can I please request Mr. J.J. Bhagat to please come and facilitate our panelists? Can I please request Mr. Tarun Sawhney to felicitate Mr. Jean-Claude Autre? Dr. Jean-Claude Autre, can we please have you on stage, please? With this, we conclude the session. I would like to thank everyone for joining us.